Hello everyone, in this session we'll be learning about Django framework and we'll learn about what is a backend. This is the index which we'll be following over the series of videos where we'll learn about what is backend, then we'll look into the Django framework, then we'll deep down into the database and the database structures, and then we'll try to make our own database using JSON. Then we'll know about the APIs in Django and how to make one and what are the APIs. Then we'll try to connect the whole Django part with the Angular front end, which we earlier made. And then we'll see some request libraries in Python, and then we'll know about what is CORS. So let's get started with the backend. Suppose we are in a restaurant and we own the restaurant. So the people coming to eat there will be our clients. So the clients wants to order food from our restaurant menu, the menu which we set, and these clients will ask for the food which is listed in that restaurant. Next is if we own a restaurant, then we should also have a kitchen inside that. And inside the kitchen, we need a chef who can make all those menus, who can make all those food from the menu which we set. So there needs to be someone who can process the food items and actually make the food which the clients want. And the third thing which we need in our restaurant is a fridge, maybe, uh, where our chef will need all the food items from the refrigerator to be able to make the dishes. Basically, some place to store all the food items which the chef will need in future to make all the food items listed in our menu. So we understand this structure, how the restaurant works, because the client never sees what's going inside the kitchen, and the chef does not know who is going to eat the food he's making. So the client side, or the client where the person who is trying to order the food is the client side, is called the front end, which we have seen in the earlier videos. Now we'll know about what goes in the kitchen, what is in the back end, where this kitchen is where all the food is being processed. It is on the back side of the restaurant. That's why we can call it as a back end. So let's use this terminology and we'll see how it fits in our front end and a back end in our web development. So this is our Google homepage. We don't see a lot of things on the front end. This just a simple box where we can put the things which we want to search. So this is front end is very clean. It's like the restaurant table is very neat and clean. Similarly, there we will be the clients if we go to our Google homepage and if we are trying to search something that is similar to what in the restaurant we do, we try to order something. So the client side and there's the other side is called server side. The server side is it's like a kitchen. It takes the request which we give, like in the restaurant we ordered the food, the request was a food. Similarly, here the thing in the Google homepage, the thing which we want to search will be the request. So from the client side, from the front end, it will go to the server side or to the back end. And there are some fact is that Google processes over 20 petabytes of data every day. And 1 petabyte is 1 million gigabytes. That's quite a lot of amount of data to process. And we in our daily life hardly use 2 GBs of data per day. So this is not something which we can process from a simple machine which we have. That's why we need a big servers. That's why it's called server side. This this much data cannot be served obviously from the front end because our laptops will not be able to load the full page if we give it something like a 1 GB of web page. That's why the front end needs to be very light and it needs to be very empty. All the processing needs to be done in the back end where they have a lot of space and a lot of data to process. So between the server side and the client side, or we can say from the table in the restaurant to the kitchen, between these two sites, we need a waiter to transfer a food. A waiter will ask for the food which the client want, and then goes to the kitchen and tell the chef about the things which people have ordered, and finally takes the food from the kitchen back to our clients. Similarly, we need something to transfer the data from the front end in our web to the back end. And that part of waiter here is defined with the hypertext transfer protocol. In short, HTTP. It's a transfer protocol. It tells about how the thing should be transferred between the front end and the back end so that there's a generalization in the whole web development section so that uh, there's no miscommunication between two different websites. And the person who is carrying uh, this data, or the in our earlier example the waiter who was carrying the food, here it is done by APIs. API meaning application programming interface. API serves the data to the client or a front end the way the waiter was serving food earlier in our examples. So this is the terminology. First is our database is actually the kitchen, the refrigerator which is inside the kitchen. That will be the database. So this is the data which we will be storing in that refrigerator. It's like a raw food items which are required inside to process inside the kitchen to process the food. Similarly, in the database, we'll try to store the information which is necessary, like we'll try to store the passwords of the username so that we can authenticate that person. Similarly, the logic is like to process a food, to make, finally we'll have to make the food and deliver it to the front end. So that part is in the logic, and we write this logic in the codes. That's why in the back end we will have this database and the logic part. And our request and response will be the request which the um, request for the food like the clients were giving in a restaurant. Now it will be something like when we go to the Google homepage, we'll request for some information. So that will be the request, and the response in the restaurant was food. We used to get the food items back from the kitchen. Now we'll get the information back. That is called response. So this was the whole terminologies and the whole back end and front end part which we needed to understand to further go into the Django framework. So the Django framework will be the back end part. So now let's look into the Django framework.